Now, when it comes to Purim, Megillat Esther, I think that one of the most important lessons to learn, from Megillat Esther is that this is very much a tale of our lives, our modern lives today. Where you see certain things and certain people in the world today, and when you think about Megillat Esther, it's like, wow, there's really nothing new under the sun. There's really nothing new under the sun. One of the questions Chachamim ask is, how come Hashem's name is not mentioned a single time in the Torah? And the Chachamim respond that Hashem's name is mentioned in the Torah, in the Megillah, but not as Hashem's name, but rather anytime it's referring to the word Melech. Anytime the word Melech, king, it's really referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, meaning that Hashem is hidden in the Megillat Esther. But nonetheless, the Megillat Esther is a part of the Tanakh, it's part of the Torah, so much so that the Chachamim say that once the Mashiach comes, the prophets and the writings will not be valid, and the Megillat Esther will still be read every year, will still be valid. What does that mean? Obviously, we know that every word in the Torah, including the Tanakh, is always valid. So what does that actually mean? What it means is that if, let's say, there was a circumstance where at the time of Mashiach, we would have to pick either Megillat Esther or the writings and the prophets' writings in the Tanakh, Megillat Esther takes precedence. Of course, Megillat Esther is going to be read every single year, but including after the time of Mashiach, because it'll always be relevant even at that time, even at the time of Mashiach. Whereas the prophecies about the days of Mashiach are not going to be as relevant anymore. Of course, there's always going to be things to learn, but the point being is that's what the Chachamim is trying to refer. So why is the Megillat Esther so relevant? That's really the big question. This week we had a couple of shulim where we had our Jewish Ashkafa shiur based on the writings of the Chazon Ish, and we had our Ikvita de Meshicha shiur based on the writings of Rav Elchanan Wasserman. And one of the things that we see is that the more and more we learn from the Chachamim, we see that when Shlomo HaMelech says there's nothing new under the sun, he's also referring to the fact that whatever writings you see the Chachamim write, it's not necessarily that they're bringing something new, but rather something that already exists, just in a different way. So you see that all of the writings, whether it's the Chazon Ish, or it's Rav Wasserman, or it's Rav Ovadia, or it's any Chacham that has Yirat Shamayim, that is teaching Torah Emet, you'll always see that it all connects. In the writings of the Chazon Ish, we saw this week that the Chazon Ish is trying to tell us that it's very important for a person to, in their process of doing tshuva, to get to the point of working on their character traits to the extent of feeling disgust towards undue frivolity and passing pleasures. Geol nefesh le'olelut v'tanugei evel. So this is really interesting that not only he says this, but he says it this week that we're reading it. As you obviously see, everything is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, designing everything at a precise time. Because what does this have to do with Megillat Esther? You see that the main reason that the Megillat Esther is even something that we read and why it's relevant to today is because of how the whole story starts. Megillat Esther starts, Achashverosh is king, he rules all over the world. He, as Rav Ephraim mentioned in his commentary on Megillat Esther, the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin says that Achashverosh is from the descendant of Ham, and he is from Cush. He was a black man that came from Cush, came from Africa, and Haman came from Hodu, came from India. And thereby we see, that's why it says that Achashverosh's kinghood was from Oduat Kush, from India until Kush, from the kinghood and the power of Haman, all the way to Achashverosh. Some can say that that's because at some point in the whole parasha, in the whole Megillat Esther, that after 9 years after the story began, when Haman was given the position of power, the Midrash Shmuel is saying actually that Haman became more powerful than Achashverosh himself. In fact, the Midrash Shmuel says that Hashem's name is hidden so deeply during that time that because Am Yisrael sinned, that Hashem in essence made Haman more powerful than him. Obviously, there's nothing more powerful than HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but the Midrash Shmuel is saying, and I've heard this from Rav Biderman, that it's what happened here is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu hid himself so much that the Jews were in such trouble that it seemed as if Haman can do whatever he wants, say whatever he wants, and that would be so. That would be so. And of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had mercy on us, like He always had from the beginning of creation, and saved us before it was too late. But nonetheless, that wasn't before we did serious tshuva and changed the decree. Now, how did this all start? This all started when Am Yisrael could not control their desires, cannot control their desire to be like the Goyim, cannot control their desire to enjoy some good food, cannot control their physical addictions, and ended up going to the feast. Ended up going to the feast by Achashverosh. Now, here we see that the Chazon Ish says that this feast is very much what he's talking about that we need to do tshuva for. That's what we did tshuva for in Purim. And he says if you want to do tshuva, you have to fix your desires. If you are an addict to any one particular physical thing in the world or another, whether it's money or it's women, men, it's food, otherwise, this is one of the things you have to do tshuva for very seriously, because this is what got us in trouble in the first place during Purim. And you see this today many times. People that are, for all intents and purposes, kosher Jews, Orthodox Jews, they keep Shabbat, they keep Kashrut, they keep this, they keep that, and then you see them showing up as or advocating or promoting or starting. Well, what are we doing? Oh, we're going to have an exotic kosher food event. We're going to eat food from such and such country. We're going to eat this. We're going to eat that. And many times these people find different types of exotic food that's that is kosher, or at least they hope it is, and they celebrate it. Now, of course, sometimes when they do such things, their actions are questionable, and why are they even taking so much risk? Like this group of Jews in England not too long ago took the locusts that they got, and they said these are the locusts that are mentioned in the Torah that are kosher, that the Yemenites eat, but all the other traditions don't eat, and they started frying these locusts, these bugs, and so it's kosher. Well, if you're Yemenite and you know exactly which one is which, and it's in your tradition for the last 3,000 years, then no one's going to say a thing about it. But you're some Ashkenazi or Sfaradi, and you're starting eating locusts, the question is, are you really sure? Because if you're not, if you're making a mistake here, you have a very, very serious problem on your hand. But even more than that, why are you doing this? Why do you need to eat this exotic food? Why do you need to eat this such unusual food that you're eating? And this comes from the fact that people want to have a lot of tanugim, a lot of fulfilling their desires over and over again, and they say, listen, I'm eating kosher, so what's the problem if I eat, exotic kosher? The problem is that if your whole life you're going to be chasing exotic kosher, then that means that you have not changed a single bit in the last 3,000 years since the whole story of Purim that got us into trouble by going to the feast, because this exotic kosher food that everybody wanted to go eat at the Chashverosh's house, it was all kosher. They wanted to eat the exotic food. But what ended up happening? It went from exotic kosher to just exotic. Just exotic. Exotic this, exotic that. And they made every sin under the sun. And as a result of them praising the food, praising the place, praising this, praising that, they became part of a public Chilul Hashem, where Achashverosh brought out the tools and different things that we used in the Bet HaMikdash. Chachamim say that, and it's quoted in Rabbi Ephraim's Sefer, that each day Achashverosh brought 6 different tools that we used in the Bet HaMikdash as a celebration that the Bet HaMikdash is not being built. Now, if Achashverosh is partying that the Bet HaMikdash is not being built among the rest of the Amalekites, the rest of the Arab terrorists, the rest of the missionary idol worshippers, and so on and so forth, and he's doing all of that, then, obviously Hashem is going to deal with them, but it's not our problem. They're doing whatever they're doing. But when you have Jewish people in that same party that celebrating that the Bet HaMikdash was not built, and on top of it, they're eating non-kosher food, and they're now with non-kosher women, and so on and so forth, HaKadosh Baruch Hu got very, very angry. HaKadosh Baruch Hu got very angry to the point where when the Malachim, or the Malach HaMavet, came to him and asked him to destroy Am Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu agreed and wrote a decree to destroy Am Yisrael. To destroy Am Yisrael, Hashem Yishmor. But he didn't do it right away. The story continued for another 9 years. Hashem gave Am Yisrael 9 years to wake up and see and realize that they've done wrong and do tshuva. And since they did not, the story continued to the point where Haman got into power and almost destroyed all of us. Now, from the looks of everything, it seems like we're reading the same story year after year. But anyone that studies the Megillat Esther and looks at the different midrashim and the different stories there sees that the story is more and more relevant to our day-to-day life because of the other things that happened behind the scenes, where you see that it's not what it seems. It's not what it seems. Think and make sure to share it because other people need to learn too.